The stars twinkled brightly over the galaxy, hiding secrets that had long been forgotten by time. On a distant, hidden world, the Tyac, an ancient alien race, once ruled with great power and wisdom. They had mastered technology that was far beyond anything humanity could imagine. Their cities, towering structures made from glowing metal, were marvels of design. But that was centuries ago. Now only ruins remained of their once thriving civilization. The Tyac had vanished from the galaxy, their people scattered and their history nearly erased. For a long time, no one knew what had happened to them. The few Tyac that remained were scattered across the galaxy, living in small, secretive communities, hiding from the universe that had forgotten them. The rest of the galaxy moved on, with new races rising and old ones falling. But deep within the heart of the Tyac, there remained a glimmer of hope. A small group of surviving Tyac, led by their wise leader, Ashlyn, were determined to rebuild. Ashlyn had seen the end of her people's greatness, and now she saw their only chance for survival in an unexpected place: Earth. The humans, who were still learning and growing in the vastness of space, might be the answer to their problems. With their advanced technology and strong will, humanity was now the last hope for the Tyac. Ashlyn gathered her people in the ruins of an ancient city on their homeworld. The walls were cracked and broken, but the light of the stars still shone through the gaps, lighting their faces with a soft glow. "We must go to them," she said, her voice filled with both hope and fear. "The humans are the key to our survival. Without their help, we are lost." Her closest advisors were unsure. They had heard the rumors about humanity, their wars, their distrust of other species, and their pride in their own ways. Would humans accept the Tyac? Or would they view them as just another race to conquer or ignore? But Ashlyn's conviction was unwavering. She had seen too much of her people suffer to let fear control them now. "We cannot wait any longer," Ashlyn declared. "Our enemies grow stronger, and our people grow weaker. We have no choice." The decision was made. They would go to Earth, to seek out the humans and ask for their help. But there was one problem. The Tyac had been forgotten. Their once great civilization was now a mystery, buried beneath centuries of silence. Earth's leaders knew little about the Tyac, and their history was mostly unknown. To ask for help, the Tyac would have to reveal themselves and their secrets. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the government was dealing with its own struggles. Humanity was making its first real steps into space, sending explorers and researchers to distant planets. But despite their advancements, the human race still viewed the universe with caution. Aliens were a mystery to them, and the idea of unknown species coming to Earth was met with suspicion. Some feared the aliens would be dangerous, while others were curious about what these creatures could offer. In a small, quiet corner of the Earth's government, a decision was made to investigate the strange signal that had been sent from deep space. It had come from a distant world, one that humans had never heard of before. The signal was clear, but the message was strange, speaking of ancient knowledge, an unknown race, and a request for help. Dr. Marcus Fields, a leading researcher and diplomat for the Earth government, was chosen to lead the investigation. He was known for his calm demeanor and sharp mind, someone who could handle even the most difficult situations. He had spent years studying alien cultures and was the perfect candidate to make contact with the Tyac. Dr. Fields stood in front of a large screen, looking at the coordinates of the mysterious planet. His heart raced with excitement and uncertainty. This could be the most important discovery humanity had ever made, or it could be a trap. There was no way to know. "Prepare the team," Dr. Fields ordered. "We're going to meet our first alien race. Let's make sure we're ready." As his team worked quickly to prepare for the journey, Dr. Fields thought about the possibilities. If the Tyac truly existed and needed humanity's help, this could be a turning point for both races. But there was also a lingering question. What exactly did the Tyac want from humanity? Were they truly allies, or were they hiding something darker? Little did Dr. Fields know, the fate of the Tyac and humanity was about to collide. The forgotten race, with their lost knowledge and ancient power, was about to make their return to the galaxy, and Earth was about to learn that sometimes the greatest hope for survival comes from the most unexpected places. The vastness of space stretched before Dr. Marcus Fields and his team as their ship, the Nova Horizon, sailed through the stars. The coordinates they followed led them to the planet where the mysterious signal had originated. The journey was long, but Dr. Fields had little time for rest. His mind raced with questions about the alien race they were about to meet. Would the Scifi be the allies they hoped for, or would they bring something more dangerous? Back on Earth, the government debated the risks. The president called for a private meeting with the Council of Military Leaders, scientists, and diplomats. Humanity had only just begun to reach the stars, and the thought of encountering an unknown alien species was enough to make even the most seasoned leaders uneasy. General Harris, a military leader known for his direct approach, stood at the head of the table. His face was grim as he spoke. "We don't know what we're dealing with here. These Scifi could be the most advanced species we've ever encountered, or they could be a threat we're not ready for. We need to be prepared." Dr. Emily Carter, the leading scientist who had studied interstellar biology and alien civilizations, disagreed. "We can't assume they're a threat just because they're unknown. What if they're peaceful? What if they have technology that could benefit humanity? This is an opportunity to make a real connection, not a war." The room was divided, but the president, sitting at the head of the table, made the final decision. "We will send Dr. Fields and his team. They're the best we have. But we must be cautious. Prepare the military in case things go wrong." Back aboard the Nova Horizon, Dr. Fields and his team were preparing for their arrival at the Scific's homeworld. The crew was nervous, and with good reason. No one knew what to expect. The unknown stretched out before them like a thick fog, hiding whatever lay ahead. Dr. Fields looked over the data they had gathered on the Scific so far. The signal had been clear, but cryptic. It spoke of a dying race, a lost history, and a desperate need for help. But nothing explained what the Scific wanted from humanity. Would they ask for technology, protection, or something else entirely? "Everyone, stay sharp," Dr. Fields said, addressing his crew. "We don't know what we'll find. Stay professional, and don't take any risks. Let's make first contact a success." As the Nova Horizon neared the planet, the crew could see the broken remains of the Scific cities from space. The once glorious structures were now crumbled and decayed, a reminder of the race's fall from greatness. The planet itself was lush with forests and oceans, but the scars of war and time were clear. Landing on the surface was an eerie experience. The landscape felt empty, as if the planet was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The team stepped out of the ship, their boots crunching on the soft earth. They were met by a group of Scific, tall and regal, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer under the planet's sun. Ashlyn, the leader of the Scific, stepped forward. She was taller than any human, her eyes sharp and intelligent, but also filled with sorrow. She had seen the destruction of her people, and now the survival of her race depended on a group of humans she had never met. "Welcome," Ashlyn said, her voice calm but heavy with emotion. "You are our last hope. We have waited for so long to find someone who could help us. I pray you are that answer." Dr. Fields was struck by her presence. There was a deep sadness in her eyes, but also a quiet strength. He nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "We're here to help. But first, we need to understand what's happening. What do you need from us?" Ashlyn glanced at the ruins around them, her gaze distant. "Our enemies have returned. The Lyric, a brutal race that seeks to erase us from existence. We are too few, too weak to defend ourselves. Our technology is ancient, and our people have scattered across the stars. We need your help to rebuild, to defend ourselves. Without you, we will be wiped out." Dr. Fields felt a surge of sympathy for the Tyac. They were a proud race, but they were broken. Their civilization had crumbled, and now they were asking for humanity's help. He couldn't help but wonder if humanity was ready to take on such a burden. But he also knew that the galaxy was vast, and threats like the Lyric could grow stronger if left unchecked. Perhaps the Tythac's survival was more important than he had initially thought. Perhaps the future of humanity itself could be tied to the survival of this forgotten race. He turned to his team, then back to Ashlyn. "We'll help you," he said, "but we need to know everything. Your enemies, your technology, your history. We can't help if we don't understand the full picture." Ashlyn nodded, a flicker of hope crossing her face. "I will tell you everything. But time is short. The Lyric are already on their way." With that, the team followed Ashlyn into the heart of the Tyac ruins, where their story would begin. As the doors to their ancient city creaked open, Dr. Fields couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into a new chapter of history, one that would change everything for both the Tyac and humanity. The interior of the Tyac city was unlike anything Dr. Fields and his team had ever seen. The walls were made of strange, silvery metal that seemed to pulse with energy. Ancient symbols were carved into every surface, their meaning lost to time. The air was thick with the weight of history, and the silence felt as if the entire city was holding its breath, waiting for something. Ashlyn led the group deeper into the heart of the city, where an enormous structure loomed ahead. It was a massive temple, with a high dome that rose far above the surrounding buildings. The structure seemed to hum with a low, vibrating sound, almost as if it were alive. The Tyac had once used this temple to store their most precious knowledge and technology, but now it stood as a forgotten monument to their fallen empire. "We need to start here," Ashlyn said softly, her voice filled with reverence. "This is where the heart of our power lies. It is where our people once gathered, where our knowledge was preserved." Dr. Fields looked around in awe. The room they had entered was vast, filled with rows of glowing panels and strange machines. Some of the technology still worked, its soft hum filling the air, but much of it had fallen into disrepair. The symbols on the walls seemed to shift as he looked at them, as if they were waiting for him to understand their meaning. One of Dr. Fields' team members, Sarah, stepped forward to examine a nearby panel. "This looks like a data storage system," she said, "but it's not like anything we've ever seen before." Ashlyn nodded gravely. "Yes, this is our knowledge repository. It holds the history of our people, our technologies, our culture. But the Lyric have tried to destroy it, to wipe us from the galaxy. They have attacked our cities, shattered our archives, and stolen everything they could." "Stolen everything?" Dr. Fields asked, his curiosity piqued. "What exactly do the Lyric want with your people?" Ashlyn's eyes darkened, and she turned to face him. "The Lyric are ruthless conquerors. They seek to control everything. They want to harness our knowledge and our power. Our technology is far ahead of anything they have, and they believe that by erasing us, they can take it all." Dr. Fields felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that a race could wipe out another simply to steal their technology was both horrifying and dangerous. "If they have your technology, why haven't they destroyed you already?" "They came close," Ashlyn replied, her voice heavy with sorrow. "But we fought back. The Tyac are not easily defeated. Our technology, while ancient, is powerful. But we are few now. Our numbers have dwindled, and the Lyric have learned from their past mistakes. They will not stop until we are completely gone." The weight of her words settled over the group. The stakes were higher than they had ever imagined. Dr. Fields knew that the survival of the Tyac wasn't just a matter of saving one race. It was a matter of keeping the balance of power in the galaxy from tipping into chaos. "We can help you," Dr. Fields said, trying to offer a sense of reassurance. "But we need to understand everything. If the Lyric are coming, we need to prepare. How much time do we have?" Ashlyn looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Not much. They are already on their way. They have found us, and they will not stop until they have what they want. The group moved deeper into the temple, where Ashlyn guided them to a large, circular chamber. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and upon it rested a strange, glowing crystal. The crystal pulsed with an energy that felt both ancient and alive. "This is our last hope," Ashlyn said, her voice barely a whisper. "The crystal contains the most powerful technology we possess. It holds the key to our survival, but it is damaged. We need help to repair it." Dr. Field stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. This crystal, this last hope, was something beyond anything he had ever encountered. The energy it radiated was almost tangible, and the potential it held could change everything. "We'll do whatever it takes," he said, his voice filled with determination. As Sarah and the others began to analyze the crystal, Dr. Fields turned to Ashlyn. "How did this crystal come to be? What is its purpose?" Ashlyn's eyes were distant, as if she were reliving the past. "The crystal was created by our ancestors, long before the Lurek even existed. It is a source of incredible power, capable of repairing our cities, restoring our technology, and defending us from any enemy. But when the Lurek attacked, they damaged it. Without the crystal, we have no chance." Dr. Fields nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He had seen firsthand the effects of a broken world, and he knew that the Scythic's future depended on this crystal. "We'll fix it," he said firmly. "But we'll need more than just this. We need to unite your people, gather your resources. Together, we can stand against the Lurek." Ashlyn's eyes glowed with a spark of hope, but she knew the road ahead would not be easy. The Lurek were powerful, and the Tyac were few. But now, with humanity's help, there was a chance to turn the tide. As the team began their work, Dr. Fields couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was on the edge of something monumental, and the fate of two races now rested on their shoulders. The days following their arrival on the Tyac homeworld were filled with frantic activity. Dr. Fields and his team worked tirelessly to analyze the damaged crystal, searching for a way to repair it. Sarah and the engineers studied its intricate designs, while the rest of the team gathered information on the Scythic's past. The pressure was immense. The Lurek were coming, and every moment counted. Ashlyn, though grateful for humanity's assistance, seemed distant at times. The weight of her people's survival rested on their shoulders, and she knew the consequences of failure. But even in the face of such dire circumstances, she remained a steady leader. She spent her time helping the humans in any way she could, sharing the history of the Tyac and their technology, hoping to unlock the key to saving her race. Dr. Fields often found himself lost in thought, staring at the glowing crystal in the heart of the temple. He knew that if they couldn't restore it, the Tyac would be doomed. Yet there was a sense of hope. He had seen the spark in Ashlyn's eyes, a flicker of belief that humanity could make the impossible happen. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Dr. Fields and Ashlyn sat together outside the temple, looking out over the remnants of the city. The planet was beautiful, despite the destruction. The ruins of the Tyac civilization stood as a reminder of a proud people who had once thrived. It was hard to imagine that they were now fighting for their very survival. "You don't have to do this," Ashlyn said, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "Your people could walk away. You've already done more for us than we could have ever hoped." Dr. Fields shook his head. "We're not walking away. You're not alone in this." Ashlyn smiled, a sad but grateful expression. "I wish we had more time. The Lurek are relentless. They won't stop until they have everything." "I know," Dr. Fields said. "But we'll buy you time. We'll fix the crystal, and we'll help you fight back." Ashlyn looked at him, her gaze intense. "We're not just fighting for our survival. We're fighting for the future of the galaxy. The Lurek won't stop with us. They'll keep conquering, spreading their cruelty. If we fall, the entire galaxy could be in danger." Dr. Fields understood the gravity of her words, that Scifi were more than just another alien race. They were a key to maintaining balance in the galaxy. If the Lurek wiped them out, nothing would stop them from claiming even greater power. "We're with you," he said, his voice firm. "Whatever it takes." As night fell, Dr. Fields returned to the temple. The team had made some progress on the crystal, but it was slow. The damage was more extensive than they had initially thought. The technology was ancient, and much of the knowledge needed to repair it was lost. They needed more time they didn't have. Sarah looked up as he entered. "We've managed to unlock a portion of the crystal system, but it's only a small piece. The core functionality is still offline." "We don't have much time," Dr. Fields replied. "We need to push forward. Can we use any of your people's knowledge to help us?" Ashlyn entered the room, her face pale but determined. "I can try. I will show you the old records, the knowledge that we still have. It may be incomplete, but it might give us the answers we need." As Ashlyn led the team into another chamber, Dr. Fields could see the weight of the situation in her eyes. She had given everything for her people's survival. There was no turning back now. They spent the next few hours searching through ancient texts and digital records. The information was fragmented, but they slowly pieced together the puzzle. The crystal was a sophisticated piece of technology, one that required both scientific knowledge and a deep understanding of the Tyac's energy systems. Dr. Fields knew that if they didn't get it working soon, the Lurek would have an advantage that could be impossible to overcome. As they worked, Ashlyn continued to offer whatever knowledge she could. She explained how that Scifi had once harnessed the power of their homeworld's core, using it to fuel their technology. But with the Lurek's attack, the core had been damaged, and their energy systems had failed. The crystal was meant to stabilize and repair it, but it was a delicate process. One wrong move, and it could be destroyed forever. "We have to try," Dr. Fields said, glancing at Sarah. "It's the only chance we've got." With Ashlyn's guidance, the team carefully aligned the components of the crystal, reactivating its energy fields. The air in the chamber grew thick with tension as they waited for the device to respond. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hum, the crystal began to glow brighter. "We're getting something," Sarah said, her voice filled with excitement. "It's working." But just as hope began to rise, the crystal flickered and died. The glow faded, and the room fell silent once more. "No," Ashlyn whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's too late. We failed." Dr. Fields stared at the inert crystal, frustration and despair threatening to overwhelm him. But there was still a spark of hope in his heart. They hadn't given up yet. He wouldn't let Ashlyn's people fall without trying everything. "We're not done yet," he said, determination in his eyes. "We'll find another way." But deep down, he knew time was running out. The days that followed their failed attempt to activate the crystal were tense. Dr. Fields and his team had spent every waking hour trying to figure out what went wrong. They pored over every piece of information they could find, but nothing seemed to work. The Lurek were still on their way, and the pressure was building. It seemed like the Tyac's only hope was slipping away. Ashlyn, though, had not given up. She still believed in the power of humanity. After all, they had already done so much for her people. The knowledge and skills they brought with them from Earth had proven invaluable. Yet there was still something that eluded them. The crystal needed more than just technical expertise. It needed a deep understanding of the Tyac's unique energy system. One evening, as the sun set and the stars began to twinkle above, Ashlyn approached Dr. Fields. Her face was grim, but there was a spark of resolve in her eyes. "There is something I have not told you," she said, her voice low. Dr. Fields looked up from the pile of schematics he had been studying. "What is it?" "There is a hidden sanctuary," Ashlyn explained. "It was built by my ancestors, a place where the most advanced Scific knowledge was stored. The sanctuary is said to hold the key to unlocking the full potential of the crystal. But it is far from here, in a place where few have ventured. Dr. Fields leaned forward, intrigued. And you think it can help us? Ashlyn nodded. I do not know for certain, but it is our best hope. If we do not try, then everything we have done so far will have been for nothing. The urgency in her voice struck Dr. Fields. He knew they couldn't afford to wait. They needed that sanctuary, and they needed it now. Then we'll go, he said, standing up and gathering his team. We'll do whatever it takes. The group set out the very next day, traveling through the desolate lands of the Tyac homeworld. Ashlyn led the way, guiding them through rocky terrain and treacherous paths. The journey was not easy, but the team followed without question. Each step brought them closer to the sanctuary, and, they hoped, the solution they so desperately needed. As they walked, Ashlyn shared more about the history of the Tyac people. She spoke of a time when they had been peaceful, when their civilization had flourished. They had been a proud race, known across the galaxy for their wisdom and innovation. But all of that had changed when the Lurek arrived, bringing destruction and chaos with them. The Lurek have always been a threat, Ashlyn said, but now they are a force unlike anything we've ever faced. If we do not stop them, we may never be able to rebuild. Dr. Fields understood the weight of her words, that Scifi were not just fighting for their survival, they were fighting for the future of their entire race. If they failed, it would mean the end of everything they had ever known. As they reached the foot of a steep mountain, Ashlyn paused. The sanctuary is just ahead, but be warned, it is not an easy place to enter. The energy there is unstable. We will need to be cautious. The team gathered around her, ready for whatever lay ahead. They had come this far, and they couldn't turn back now. Together, they climbed the mountain, each step bringing them closer to the sanctuary. As they neared the summit, the air grew thick with a strange energy. The ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with power, and the sky above swirled with an eerie glow. Dr. Fields felt a sense of awe and fear. He had never encountered anything like this before. At the top of the mountain, they found the entrance to the sanctuary, a massive stone door carved with ancient symbols. Ashlyn stepped forward, placing her hand on the door. It opened slowly, revealing a dark chamber inside, illuminated by a soft, pulsating light. This is it, Ashlyn said. The knowledge we need is inside. The team entered the sanctuary, their eyes adjusting to the dim light. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of the Tyac's past, their rise to power, their peaceful era, and their struggle against the Lurek. At the center of the room stood a large pedestal, upon which rested a glowing orb. Ashlyn approached the pedestal with reverence. This is the heart of our knowledge, the key to saving my people. Dr. Fields stepped forward, examining the orb. It seemed to pulse with energy, as if alive. He could feel its power, its connection to the very core of the Tyac civilization. We need to extract the information from this, Dr. Fields said, turning to Sarah. Can we interface with it? Sarah nodded. We'll need to use the equipment we brought, but I think it's possible. As Sarah set to work, Dr. Fields turned to Ashlyn. How long do you think it will take? Ashlyn's eyes were filled with a mixture of hope and fear. I do not know, but we must be ready. The Lurek could arrive at any moment. Time was running out. Dr. Fields knew they had to succeed. The fate of the Tyac, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on what they found in the sanctuary. The sanctuary's air seemed to buzz with an electric charge as Sarah worked diligently, her hands moving quickly over the equipment. The orb at the center of the room pulsed rhythmically, as though responding to her touch. Dr. Fields stood nearby, his eyes fixed on her, his thoughts racing. Time was not on their side. Every passing second brought them closer to the arrival of the Lurek. Ashlyn paced nervously. She could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on her. The sanctuary was their last hope. If they failed to extract the knowledge contained within the orb, the Tyac would be doomed. And even if they succeeded, they still had to figure out how to use it in time. Sarah glanced up from her work, wiping sweat from her forehead. "It's strange," she said. "This orb isn't like anything I've ever seen. The energy is unlike anything we've encountered before. It's almost alive." Dr. Fields nodded, deep in thought. "I suspected that. This could be more than just technology. It might be a form of intelligence, a kind of memory bank for the entire Scific race." Ashlyn stepped forward, her expression filled with both hope and fear. "I've heard stories of such things, but they were always considered legends. If it truly is what you say, then this orb holds not only the power to save us, but the knowledge of our past." As Sarah continued to work, Dr. Fields took a moment to look around the sanctuary. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, showing the history of the Tyac, how they once thrived, how they were forced to flee their home, and how they lost everything when the Lyric arrived. The weight of this history hung heavily in the air. He could sense how much it meant to Ashlyn, how deeply the loss had affected her people. "This place is like a time capsule," Dr. Fields said quietly. "It's not just a sanctuary for your people, Ashlyn. It's a living memory of everything they were." Ashlyn nodded, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Our people were once a proud race, but now we are but a shadow of what we used to be. This orb, it's our only chance to reclaim what we've lost." The words hung in the air, and for a brief moment there was silence. Then Sarah spoke up, her voice full of urgency. "I've got it," she said, her face lighting up with triumph. "The interface is complete. I'm unlocking the information now." As her fingers flew across the control panel, the orb began to glow brighter, casting an eerie light across the room. The energy in the air grew stronger, vibrating with power. Dr. Fields could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end as the room seemed to come alive. Suddenly, a low hum filled the sanctuary. The walls began to tremble, and the orb in the center of the room pulsed faster and faster. The lights flickered, and for a brief moment, Dr. Fields feared the entire place would collapse. "Is it supposed to do that?" Sarah asked, her voice tense as she tried to stabilize the equipment. "I don't know," Dr. Fields replied, his gaze fixed on the orb. "We've never seen anything like this before." The tremors grew stronger, and Ashlyn took a step back, her expression fearful. "The energy is unstable. It could overwhelm us." "We can't stop now," Dr. Fields said, his voice firm. "We have to see this through." Just as the energy reached its peak, a sudden burst of light shot out from the orb, enveloping the entire room in a blinding glow. Dr. Fields and Sarah shielded their eyes, and Ashlyn gasped in shock. Then, as quickly as it had come, the light faded. The humming stopped. The room fell silent. For a long moment, no one moved. Then slowly, Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "It's done. The data has been transferred." Dr. Fields stepped forward, his eyes scanning the data now displayed on Sarah's screen. The symbols were complex, but they were beginning to make sense. He could see blueprints for weapons, defensive strategies, and new technologies. This wasn't just information. It was the key to the Tyac's survival. Ashlyn stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. "What does it say? What can we do?" Dr. Fields glanced at her, his heart heavy with the weight of her hope. "We have what we need. We have the power to fight back." Just then, a distant rumble echoed through the sanctuary. The ground beneath their feet shook, and a low, ominous growl reverberated through the walls. Dr. Fields and Ashlyn exchanged a look. "The Lyric are here," Ashlyn whispered. Dr. Fields felt a surge of adrenaline. They didn't have much time. But now, they had the knowledge to stand a chance. "We need to move," he said urgently. "We have to get back to the ship and prepare." Sarah quickly packed up her equipment, and the team began to make their way back down the mountain. As they descended, Dr. Fields couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of hope. They had the knowledge. They had the power. Now, They would use it. The sun was beginning to set as Dr. Fields, Sarah, and Ashlyn stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out over the vast landscape below. The peaceful scenery belied the tension in the air. The ground beneath them still trembled from the Luric's approach, a constant reminder that time was running out. They had prepared as best as they could, using the knowledge from the orb to set up defenses and create a plan of attack. But none of them could shake the feeling that the coming battle would be unlike anything they had ever faced. "We have one shot at this," Dr. Fields said, his voice steady, but with a hint of uncertainty. "We can't afford to fail." Ashlyn nodded, her expression hardening with determination. "If we fall here, our people will be lost forever. The Lyric cannot be allowed to win." Sarah stood beside them, her eyes scanning the horizon. "It's not just about surviving. We have to make sure they can never hurt your people again. The knowledge in that orb, it's more than just weapons. It's a way to build a future." Ashlyn smiled faintly. "I hope you're right." The sound of engines roaring in the distance interrupted the moment. The Lyric had arrived. They were close, too close. "We need to move," Dr. Fields said. "The battle won't wait for us." They hurried down the cliffside, making their way toward the hidden base. Inside, the control room buzzed with activity. The weapons systems, powered by the ancient Tyac technology, were now online and ready for use. But it was still unclear if they would be enough. Ashlyn's hand trembled as she activated the main console. The monitors flickered, displaying maps of the Lyric forces advancing toward them. There were hundreds of them, more than they had anticipated. "They're moving faster than we thought," she said, her voice strained. "They'll be here in less than an hour." Sarah stepped forward, her expression calm despite the looming danger. "Then we need to make every second count." Dr. Fields looked at the displays. The Lyric ships were massive, their weapons capable of destroying entire cities with a single shot. They had no choice but to fight, but they would need to be smart if they were going to win. "Prepare the shields," Dr. Fields instructed. "We'll need to buy ourselves some time before we can launch the counterattack." Ashlyn nodded, moving swiftly to the control panels. Her hands flew across the buttons, activating the defensive systems. Bright shields appeared around the base, shimmering like an impenetrable force field. It was a start, but they couldn't rely on the shields forever. As the first Lyric ships broke through the atmosphere, their massive forms cast long shadows over the ground. The battle had begun. "Now," Dr. Fields shouted. The first wave of Scythic weapons launched with precision, striking the Lyric ships. Explosions rocked the air, sending shockwaves through the ground. But the Lyric were relentless. Their ships retaliated, firing powerful beams of energy that threatened to tear through the shields. Sarah and Ashlyn worked together to coordinate the defense, rerouting energy to the weakest points of the shields, while Dr. Fields kept the weapons system running smoothly. The air was thick with tension as each moment felt like it could be their last. "We need to take down their leader," Dr. Fields said, his mind racing. "If we destroy the command ship, the rest of the fleet will lose coordination." Ashlyn's eyes widened with recognition. "I know where the command ship is. It's heading straight for us." With no time to waste, Dr. Fields pulled up a map of the enemy fleet, quickly calculating the best route to intercept the command ship. "Sarah, can you get us close enough?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "I'm already on it." The ship's engines roared to life, and within moments, they were airborne, heading straight toward the heart of the Lyric fleet. The command ship loomed ahead, a dark shadow against the setting sun. As they closed in, the Lyric forces fired their weapons, but the Tyac ship's shields held strong. Ashlyn stood at the helm, her face a mask of concentration, as she expertly navigated through the chaos of battle. "We're almost there," Sarah called out, her voice tense. "Just a little closer." Dr. Fields tightened his grip on the controls. "Now, focus all fire on the command ship's weak spot." The weapons systems fired with deadly accuracy, striking the command ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a thunderous explosion, The command ship erupted into flames, sending debris scattering across the sky. The Lyric forces faltered. Their ships lost their synchronization, chaos spreading throughout their fleet. The tide of the battle had shifted. "We did it," Sarah whispered, a sense of relief flooding over her. Ashlyn let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "We're not out of danger yet, but we've won the first battle." The Scifi fleet regrouped, their morale lifted by the victory. The Lyric had underestimated the resilience of the Tyac and the power of humanity's ingenuity. As the last of the Lyric ships retreated, Dr. Fields turned to Ashlyn, a tired but triumphant smile on his face. "We've given your people a chance at survival." Ashlyn looked at the burning sky, the remnants of the battle fading into the distance. "You've done more than that. You've given us hope." Together, they stood, watching as the future of the Tyac unfolded before them. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time in a long while, Ashlyn could see a future worth fighting for.